What's good, YouTube? Let's grade the Houston Texans 2025 draft. Let's get straight into it, starting with Jaden Higgins. Look, I really liked the Jaden Higgins pick. The Texans were picking at 25. There had been reports that they were trying to trade up with the Cowboys at 12, probably to select Tyler Booker. The reporting said they lowballed Jerry Jones, which is kind of funny. That's fine with me that Jerry Jones didn't accept. Honestly, I wasn't a huge fan of Tyler Booker at pick 12 anyway. So then the reporting kind of came that they were looking at Matthew Golden and they were looking at Donovan Jackson. Obviously, those two players go right before you at 25. So what do the Texans do? They trade back, and that is the best thing they could have done possible. Okay, they trade back with the Giants. They end up selecting at 34. Who do they pick with 34? That is Jaden Higgins. Look, there is a lot to like about Jaden Higgins. Jaden Higgins, in some people's boards, is the number 3 receiver in this class. I have him, maybe not 3, maybe that's a little rich, but like at least 4 or 5. The only receivers I would put ahead of Higgins definitively are Ted McMillan, Travis Hunter, who we're not really counting, and you could make the argument Emeka Ibuka probably. Matthew Golden is where it starts getting dicey, and Luther Burden I actually have below Jaden Higgins on my board, especially when you factor in all those character issues. So what's there to like about Jaden Higgins? 6'4", 214 pounds, runs a 4.4 740, extremely athletic for his size. Now, the one knock I have on Jaden Higgins is I don't think he's as physical as his size warrants. I think his yards after catch ability can tend to be diminished, and he should be able to get more with his size. And that's why I think it's a great opportunity for him to learn with Nico Collins, because he's a lot more technically sound coming out of college than Nico Collins was. And Nico Collins can maybe just give him some tips and some pointers on how to improve the physicality aspect of his game, because he certainly got the size. Look, if the Texans would have taken Jaden Higgins at 25, I would have liked it. I still think that's the best move they could have done if they stuck and pick at 25 is Jaden Higgins. I wouldn't have loved it, but the fact that they traded back to 34, were able to get that extra pick, and then still made the selection and got Jaden Higgins was perfect. I think he was the best receiver available over Luther Burden. So I really liked the Jaden Higgins pick. Now let's move on to the second round with Arante Urser. Now look, Arante Urser was a selection that needed to happen because you needed offensive line help. I really like the Arante Urser pick too. I like it a little bit less because of the fit, right? Arante Urser, I believe, can play tackle. Now you already have a left tackle in Cam Robinson. You already have a right tackle in Blake Fisher. If Blake Fisher doesn't work out, you can try Titus Howard at right tackle, but that's where it's kind of like, well, where does Arante Urser fit in? Again, 6'6", 331 pounds, really good anchor. His lateral movement isn't the best, so that's the one knock I have on him for being a tackle, but I still think he fits the tackle mold a lot better than some of these offensive linemen. For example, Jonas Savaiena goes before Arante Urser does, and I think Jonas Savaiena has to play guard. You could make the argument that he would have been a better fit for the Texans because the Texans really need a right guard, but at the same time, if Arante Urser is meant to be the future left tackle, that's fine, but that doesn't really help us win now. If he's meant to play guard, that helps us win now, but I don't think he's best suited at guard. Now, some people do. Some people have him as like their one or ranked second or third guard of the draft. I just think he can play tackle. So for that reason, I don't like the fit. But that being said, there wasn't much more the Texans could do. I mean, you already saw Savaiena go off the board. You go up, you trade up from 58, you trade the third you got from the Giants, you go up to 48, and you select Arante Urser. After him, Anthony Belton goes, the tackle out of North Carolina State. Urser was much higher on my board than Belton. And then Ozzie Trapilo goes to the Bears. Again, Urser was much higher on my board than Ozzie Trapilo. So I really like the Urser pick. The fit is where it kind of calls into question to where I don't like it as much as the Higgins, but still, it's a solid pick. Moving on, let's talk about Jaylen Null. Now, Jaylen Null, the teammate of Jaden Higgins, becomes the second Iowa State receiver the Texans select at, where was he selected at? 79, and the third Iowa State receiver on the roster with Jaden Higgins and Xavier Hutchinson. So it's literally a room full of Iowa State receivers. Now, Jaylen Null was one of my sleeper receivers on my board in this draft. When you look at the receivers who go ahead of Null, you have Kyle Williams out of Washington State. A lot of people were high on him. I wasn't super high on Kyle Williams. Isaac Tesla goes before Null. I'm sorry, Tesla is not as good as Null is. That was a bit of a reach. And then Pat Bryant goes to the Denvers in front of Null. Again, not really my speed at all. So I 100% understand why the Texans made this selection. The other factor we have to play into it is that, guys, Tank Dell's future with the Texans is not looking great. The reason why they selected Null is to be that replacement for Tank Dell. Jaylen Null, 5'10", 194 pounds, a little undersized, but honestly, he plays pretty physical for his size. Really great speed. I believe he ran a 4.3 940. And he's a guy who can also return punts and kicks. So Null had over 1,100 yards. Higgins had over 1,100 yards. Something that's being underrated, I think, by the overall consensus of like people reviewing the draft is that this is the only wide receiver duo that each had a 1,000-yard season in college football, and the Texans have both of them on their team. So I think that's a really underappreciated fact there. And again, Jaylen Null, a little more undersized, but he really fits that slot position, really that replacement for Tank Dell. And I think Jaylen Null can learn a lot from Christian Kirk, just like Jaden Higgins can learn a lot from Nico Collins. I understand some people who wanted to go offensive line here. I mean, the reality is, let me just do a quick scan. I mean, you could have gone Emory Jones Jr., another tackle from LSU, which I wouldn't have really liked. You could have gone Jared Wilson, who goes later in the third, this center from Georgia. That would have been okay, but still, I don't know. Jaylen Null, to me, was an excellent pick for the value. And again, you're giving C.J. Stroud more weapons. However, there is a somber note when you're talking about the Tank Dell injury. So again, in the third round, the Texans actually move up and select Jaylen Smith, another Jaylen. Jaylen Smith was probably my least favorite pick in this draft. 5'11", only 187 pounds, an undersized corner out of USC. I didn't get to Jaylen Smith, but the more I kind of researched him, the less I kind of liked it. And look, I understand you have to give the Texans some trust when it comes to evaluating their secondary. I wasn't really high on Kamari Lassiter, especially when we drafted him. It felt like a kind of we had to because Cooper DeJean went right before, Kool-Aid McKinstry goes right before, so we kind of felt stuck with Kamari Lassiter. When Kalen Bullock goes in the third round, we're like, oh, okay, are we kind of settling for a USC safety on a team that was bad defensively during the year? Well, obviously, they proved us wrong. DeMeco Ryans proved us wrong, so we have to kind of give him some more leash when it comes to selecting these defensive backs because they seem to know what they're doing. That being said, Jaylen Smith was not regarded as a third-round pick. I think every draft person that covered Jaylen Smith had him going in the 6th or the 7th round. So a massive reach for Jaylen Smith. On top of that, the Houston Texans traded up. I don't remember the compensation, but it was pretty significant. So again, I wasn't really high on the Jaylen Smith pick. I will say, if you're going to go reach for a corner and you like him, corner's a good position to do that. You always need youth. You always need backups for that, and it does fill that backup corner, that nickel spot. But I heard some people saying this was just like a special teams piece. Guys, it's way too early to be drafting special teams, so I really hope that's not the case because you don't want to be drafting special teams in the third round. So that's kind of my spiel on Jaylen Smith, my least favorite pick of the day. My second least favorite pick of the day goes to Woody Marks, another player out of USC. The Texans really falling in love with that red and gold in the 4th round. Look, Woody Marks is a really good receiving back, so I understand the appeal fit-wise, pairing him with Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon is your bell cow. Woody Marks is the receiving back you put in on 3rd down to give Joe Mixon a rest. I understand the fit. I just felt like there were better running backs on the board. I mean, I know Dylan Sampson goes to the Browns after Woody Marks does. Trevor Etienne goes right before you, only 2 spots. Jarquez Hunter from Auburn goes right after you. I'm not a huge Jarquez Hunter guy, but again, I would have really liked Dylan Sampson there. I think his speed is just so hard to pass up. And then you also could have waited on running back. I mean, Brashard Smith from SMU went in the 7th round to the Chiefs. Brashard Smith is a really good receiving back that you could have gotten value from in the 6th or 7th round. So Woody Marks didn't really do it for me. Probably my second least favorite pick in the draft after Jaylen Smith, but from a fit perspective, he certainly seems to match the fit pretty well. Let's move on to Jaylen Reed, who was one of my other favorite picks in this draft. Jaylen Reed, you get really good value of value out of in the 6th round. 6 foot, 211 pounds, the safety from Penn State. Look, he's going to get some special teams run for sure. You don't really need a safety with Kalen Bullock, with Jimmy Ward, and with CJ Gardner-Johnson, but I really liked the value here. I completely understand why they did it. At this point, this guy can get some run on special teams, like I said. I think he will make the roster in a special teams role. I also think he could fill in and play some backup safety if there were, if we were to get plagued by injuries with when you have Jimmy Ward on the roster. That's always kind of a concern. I do feel like Jaylen Reed can also be the Jimmy Ward replacement and really kind of come into that room with CJ Gardner-Johnson and with Kalen Bullock. So I was really high on Jaylen Reed. I actually mocked Jaylen Reed going to the Texans in the 6th round, I believe, in one of my mocks. So it was really nice pick there and really liked that. So moving on as we get kind of to the end. Okay, I know I talked about my least favorite pick earlier. This is probably, I take it back, probably my other least favorite pick. Graham Mertz. Look, I understand that every team needs a 3rd string quarterback, but Graham Mertz was awful at Wisconsin. He was like mid at Florida, and then he tore an ACL. He's had problems staying healthy the whole time with ACL injuries. He spent, I think, 5 or 6 years in college. I think 5 years in college. I mean, this will be a guy that is going to be throwing to practice squad players. Graham Mertz, in a perfect world and realistically, should never see the field. I heard some people talking about like him maybe being the backup replacement for Davis Mills. Guys, Davis Mills is ages better than Graham Mertz. I mean, I thought there were so many better options. Ewers went after Graham. Like, if you really wanted a quarterback, Ewers went after him. Cam Miller from North Dakota State University went after him. That's not a great name either. But in the 6th round, I'm not going to kill him for it. It just felt like a really kind of a waste of a pick. Didn't really like it. Graham Mertz, yeah, not my least favorite, not my most favorite. But if we're in the 6th round, it's whatever. Keontae Hamilton, I didn't get into, finally deciding to bolster the trenches. Look, if he makes the team, that's great. Again, wasn't really able to look at him too in depth, but not much more to be said. He'll try to find a spot in there on the defensive tackle side of the ball. I know some people wanted to bolster that. Now we're getting into 7th round picks. We'll be happy if they make the roster. One pick I really did like, though, is Luke Lachey. Now, Luke Lachey at one point was a really kind of revered prospect. People thought he could maybe be a top candidate to be high up in the tight end rankings. He never really panned out. He is a tight end from Iowa State, so you like that. Does look to be a great blocker. The Texans really need blocking tight ends. Their best blocking tight end is probably Irv Smith or Brendan Jordan. You hope Cade Stover can grow into the blocking role as well. Luke Lachey, I mean, like I said, Iowa State tight ends, you can't really judge them on the receiving. They don't throw the ball that much. Iowa, not Iowa State, so sorry about that. But I was fine with it. I mean, this is the, third to last pick in the draft, so it's whatever at this point. If he makes the roster, that's great. If he stays on the practice squad the whole season, that's great. If we have to call him up for like a game or two, then that is a dub. So kind of recapping this draft, we started really strong with Jaden Higgins. We continued to be pretty strong with Arante Urser, best tackle available. Then you go to Jaylen Null, really great value pick I liked. Then Jaylen Smith, Woody Marks, it kind of tapers off a little bit. Jaylen Reed kind of comes back up a bit. Graham Mertz really starts to nosedive. And then here we're in the 7th round with Keontae Hamilton and Luke Lachey. So if I was to grade this overall, I think I'd give it like a B to B plus overall grade. Again, I really liked how we began with the draft. Afterwards, I did feel like it kind of tapered off. But let me know what you guys think about this draft. Do you like the picks? Are there any picks where you're just holding your head or scratching your head? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more Texans content. Appreciate y'all all hopping in, and I will see y'all in the next one, man. Peace out.